Welcome to my channel, Homeopathy Super Sessions by Dr. Jagose. Today, I'll be doing an important topic, namely remedy reaction, or the 35th lecture of cont. In this video, I'll be only telling you about the aggravations, and in the subsequent two videos, the remaining part of the topic will be taken. So let us see what this video has for us in store today. Well, it is the various observations made after the administration of homeopathic remedy according to the 35th lecture of Dr. Cont. So this is very important because as a physician, you have to identify what remedy reaction is taking place or what observation is there after administration of the similimum. Or it can also be defined as the prognosis of the patient after observing the action of the remedy. Or you can also give a prognosis by observing what type of action the individual is giving us so as to observe whether the remedy was right or wrong or other inferences. After the homeopathic remedy is administered, it starts acting, and these reactions are known to the homeopathic physician by keen observation. So the homeopathic physician should be a very keen observer. As you all know, Dr. Henneman has also said that. And only by his keen observation, he will be able to identify the different types of remedy reaction, whether it is right, whether it is wrong, and what is to be done. If not perceived carefully, then the homeopathic physician may do things which are harmful to the patient. So naturally, if you do not perceive or if you do not identify that this reaction is a wrong reaction and you go on treating the patient, then it'll do more harm to the patient rather than curing him or doing good to the patient. It is taken for granted that the medicine administered is a similimum and is starting acting on the patient. So whatever medicine we have taken according to the totality of symptoms, it is taken correctly and we've identified it as the similimum. So it is taken for granted or it is taken for consideration that this medicine, whatever you are giving according to the totality of symptom, is the similimum and its action has started. The inner nature of disease appears to the physician through the symptoms. So naturally, whatever diseases are there and whatever manifestations are occurring, they are occurring from the center and then they're going to the periphery. So we have to see what are the inner disturbances or the inner nature of the disease, that is the expressions of the signs and symptoms. Watching, waiting, and observing should be done by the physician so that he may judge by the changes what to do and what not to do. So therefore, the physician should not only be a keen observer, but he should have patience to an eminent degree also. So he must wait, he must be patient, he must be a good observer, and he must watch. And he must be able to judge what is happening in the patient, whether it is right, whether it is wrong, and if right, what to do, if wrong, also what to do. So therefore, watching, waiting, and observing are three important features which a physician should possess. However, it should be remembered that if the medicine is not a similimum, then a condition of status quo or no change occurs. So if you give a homeopathic remedy and then the patient is total status quo or there is no change, his symptoms are same as what he was before he came to you. So this is known as the status quo or no change. But as I told you, in this remedy, what we have taken, it is the similimum and it has started acting. This is just a by the way comment which is being given. After administration of similimum, one of the most commonest reactions which takes place is either an aggravation or an amelioration. So naturally, when you administer a remedy, then what will happen? Either the patient will get aggravated or he'll get ameliorated. These are the two basic common reactions which may occur. So aggravation is the intensification of symptoms of the patient. So aggravation is nothing but whatever symptoms are there, the symptoms get intensified or they may become worse. Whereas amelioration is the reduction of the intensity of the symptoms. So amelioration is the exactly opposite of aggravation. It is the reduction of the intensity of the symptoms and the symptoms slowly also may disappear. Now, aggravations can be further sub-classified into two types, the homeopathic aggravation and the disease aggravation. Now, let us see something about each of them. In the homeopathic aggravation, it is given in episode number 158 of the 6th edition of Organ of Medicine. It is nothing but the intensification of the already present symptom of the patient with a sense of well-being. So, whatever symptoms are present, they will be intensified or they will increase. But the important factor to remember is that there's always a sense of well-being. That is to say, even though symptoms of the patient increases in intensity, the patient will always say, I feel better. That no doubt, the symptoms have increased. But the patient will always tell you, doctor, though my symptoms are worse, although they have increased in intensity, or they have become more sharp, more precise, but overall, I don't know, I feel better. So he'll always tell you this, that he always feels better. So this is very important in a homeopathic aggravation, that though the symptoms have been intensified, there's a sense of well-being, and the patient will always acknowledge that he feels better. Whereas in a disease aggravation, the patient's condition gets worse, or the disease also progresses and the condition gets worse. Here, the symptoms of the patient increase. So initially, the patient may be having 3-4 symptoms, but as the disease advances, the symptoms also increase. And naturally, if the symptoms increase, no one would feel better. So the patient does not feel better. In fact, the patient grows weaker and the symptoms are growing stronger. So you are getting more and more symptoms, or more variety of symptoms, or more mature symptoms you're getting, and the patient feels weak, he feels lethargic, he feels dull, he's not active, he's not fit, he's not fine. Okay, so this is a disease aggravation. Patient condition gets worse and the symptoms go on increasing, and there is no sense of well-being. Now let us see the aim of the physician. Thus, the aim of the physician's whole idea is to judge if the patient is feeling better or worse. In the beginning also I told you, you have to be knowledgeable and you have to observe what you are doing is right and what you are doing is wrong. So your actions will be there provided you judge the patient correctly. In other words, is the patient improving or is the patient declining? Or after giving the medicine, do you think the patient is better or do you think the patient is worse, or his health is declining and is not feeling better? Symptom expressed are the only two indicators which will help us judge the case. So naturally, the symptoms is the only parameter whereby you can judge, or they act as two indicators to judge the case. So by the symptoms, you will make out whether the patient is feeling better or the patient is feeling worse. Symptoms are increasing, symptoms are decreasing, and so on. So you have to perceive the changes that are occurring. That is very important. The physician should also perceive whatever changes they are occurring, especially in the interior or the exterior change. So also he must know, the physician should know what changes are taking place in the interior as well as the exterior. Now let us see what do we mean by it. Interior changes are reflected through the symptoms. So that, as you all know, the disease starts from within and it is expressed outwards. So the changes occur first in the interior of the organism, and then there's a derangement of the vital force, and then it is reflected through the signs and symptoms on the exterior part of the body. So exterior changes reflect that the disease is being healed from the innermost. So suppose you have an eruption or you have a skin disease on the external surface. The cause lies internal in the form of the miasm. So external changes reflect that the disease is being healed from the innermost. So that means what? If after administration of the remedy, whatever eruptions are there on the external surface, they go on reducing. So therefore, you know that the internal cause is also reducing, and as a result of which, the symptoms which are expressed externally are also reducing. Or whether the symptoms have merely changed according to the superficial nature, example, incurable disease. Or you have to see whether there is some change in the symptoms, or the symptoms are only superficial and the pathology is very deep. So the interior change, the pathology is there, which is an irreversible condition, but the symptoms expressed are superficial in nature. So therefore, after giving the similimum, what will happen in an incurable case? All the superficial symptoms will totally disappear. But the main cause, that is the miasms, they still remain at the background, and being incurable, or the syphilitic miasm at the background, it is extremely difficult to cure the case. In fact, you will not be able to cure it. You'll be only able to palliate the case. So now let us see in Ken's 35th lecture, what are the different types of aggravation. So in his lecture, he has kept 4 aggravations. Number 1, or the first observation, prolonged aggravation and final decline in health of the patient. Second observation, long aggravation, but final and slow improvement in the health of the patient. Third observation, quick, short, and strong aggravation with rapid improvement in health of the patient. And fourth observation, no aggravation whatsoever. So these are the 4 types of aggravations, or 4 types of observations which deal with aggravations. Now let us see something about each of them. So the first type, prolonged aggravation and final decline in health of the patient. Well, if such a reaction occurs, it means that the disease is incurable, that the structural changes have taken place, and end organ damage has already occurred. So basically, the physician should be knowledgeable. He should perceive correctly. Until he is knowledgeable, he will not be able to perceive correctly, as a result of which he will make a mistake, and there will be a downhill of the patient, in the health of the patient. So if he perceives correctly, if you observe that the prolonged aggravation, the final decline in health of the patient, number 1, he must conclude that he is treating an incurable condition, that structural changes have taken place or irreversible changes have taken place, and naturally end organ damage has already occurred. And the medicine, which was an antipsoric, was administered in high potency. Okay, so it depends. Generally, not only antipsoric, but you can also give antipsychotic, antisyphilitic, depends upon the nature of the disease. So we have taken antipsoric and it was administered in a high potency. So whatever medicine you are giving, basically you have given the civillimum in a high potency, where there are structural changes which are irreversible and the disease is curable and there is end organ damage. So what happens? The aggravation will be there, which goes on and on and on, and there is no end to the aggravation. That is why the word prolonged has been given out here, or has been used out here. Prolonged meaning what? It just goes on and on and on and on. There is no end to it. It is infinite. It will just go on and on. So that is why it is a prolonged aggravation. So thus, this is also known as the killer's aggravation. In contrast to the second observation, it is a long observation. It is a long aggravation. So that is why the difference between prolonged and long. So prolonged has no end, whereas a long, after certain time, the patient will improve. That is known as a long aggravation. So that is why these are the 2 important differentiating points between prolonged and long. This they ask you in the Viva also. That's why I am telling you this. So we continue the first observation. Therefore, always remember that whenever structural changes have occurred, always give a low potency to start off with. So whenever you're taking the case, whenever you're evaluating the case, whenever you're seeing the symptoms, the investigations, the examination findings, as well as the pathology, you know that now you are dealing with an incurable case, where there is an irreversible damage occurred to the end organs and the pathology is very, very advanced. So in such instances, always remember that always start off with a low potency. No doubt the susceptibility at times may be quite high. The patient may be also exhibiting good PQRS symptoms, but in an incurable case, please remember, though the susceptibility may be high, you have to always start off with a low potency. Subsequently, when you get a favorable response, then only you can increase the potency with caution. So you start off with a low potency, see the remedy response. If the patient is responding well, and if the patient can tolerate this potency very well, and then you notice that there's a stagnation, the patient doesn't improve further. So in such instances, then you go to the next higher potency, but be cautious, do not repeat it often, give infrequent repetitions. Thus, when such a type of reaction occurs, the medicine should be immediately antidote. So if a prolonged aggravation with final decline in health of the patient occurs, then immediately what do? You know that you are on the wrong track. You have to at once stop the offending agent, that is stop the medicine what you are giving, and immediately give an antidote. After giving an antidote, then what do? We again, on the safer side, we again retake the case and see if the present totality still holds good. So what have you taken before? You again retake the case after antidoting, you have retaken the case and see whether the previous totality still holds good. Administer the integrated medicine, then administer the integrated medicine in low potency with infrequent repetition. So if your totality remains the same as that of the one which is taken before, then the same medicine will be there, but this time you have to give it in the low potency. And when the totality is changed, naturally the medicine will also change. So this is about the first observation. Second, long aggravation, but final and slow improvement in the health of the patient. So out here, long meaning what? It lasts for several weeks. That means what? As I told you, it is long. That means the aggravation is there. It will take place for several weeks, and then the patient will start responding. So that means what? Aggravation takes place, it then stops, and then the patient feels better. Whereas in a prolonged, there is no stoppage. It just goes on, increasing. So in the long aggravation, it lasts for several weeks. So how you have to conclude that it is a borderline case between curability and incurability. So when you take the case first time and you give the similimum, then if you get an aggravation which may be lasting for weeks, it is quite troublesome to the patient as well as to the physician, but naturally more troublesome to the patient. So you have to come to a conclusion that it is a borderline case, maybe between curability and incurability. So it's a delicate balance, like a seesaw, okay? After giving the medicine, it may tilt this side towards cure, or it may tilt this side towards incurability, okay? So there's a great possibility that the patient pathology could be again reversed. That is why you get a long aggravation, but final and slow improvement in health of the patient. It shows that in the beginning of the disease, there's a marked tissue change in some organ. So that means what? In the initial phases of the disease, there has been some tissue change in some specific organ. The disease has not progressed quite far, and the changes have not become quite so marked. And fortunately, the disease has not progressed at a rapid pace. It is going, the onset is very slow, the progress is also very slow, and the changes or the pathology which is there, it is not gone into a state of irreversibility. But again, it is a borderline case between curability and incurability. Had the cause been allowed to progress by itself, it would have become an incurable case. So if the patient did not come to you at the correct point in time, then it could so happen that this case, which was initially curable, would become an incurable case. Even though initial aggravation occurs, the economy of the patient finally responds. So no doubt, there's a long aggravation, lasts for a few weeks, but then it stops. And the full economy of the patient then responds to the medicine, and the patient shows sign of improvement. So in such instances, you just have to wait and watch. Do not repeat the medicine, because you have got a long aggravation which has taken place for a number of weeks, and now the economy has responded, and the symptoms are getting less and less and less, and day by day, week by week, month by month, the patient is improving. Third, quick, short, and strong aggravation with rapid improvement in health of the patient. So whenever an aggravation comes quickly, it is short and has been more or less vigorous, then you will find improvement of the patient will be long. So if you get a sharp, short, and strong aggravation, naturally the improvement also of the patient will also be long, or it will be a long-lasting improvement. This is also known as the homeopathic aggravation, given episode number 158, the 6th edition of the Organon. It occurs because the drug disease is slightly stronger than the natural disease, episode number 160. So why does it occur? Because the artificially induced drug disease is more stronger than the natural disease. So what is happening at this time, the natural disease is there, you are creating an artificial drug disease which is overtaking the natural disease. So it overtakes this. So this much of it is a bit more, right or not? Because it overtakes it. So when it overtakes it, this is the time when you get this sharp, quick, and strong aggravation. It means that the case is curable. There is no tendency for structural changes in the vital organs, and any structural change will be seen on the superficial level and not in any vital organ. So suppose you are getting any structural change, it will only occur at the superficial level. Meaning what? They are known as surface changes and are not likely and not like the change that take place in the internal organs like the liver, spleen, kidney, brain, and the heart. So you may see some changes on the skin, and that's all, and not in the important organs of the body which are vital for life. So every physician will be happy when such an aggravation takes place because he knows that the medicine is correct, is given in the right potency, it is repeated judiciously, and that the cure will definitely take place. The medicine selected was absolutely correct. It was administered right potency. There are no structural changes taking place or even no tendency for structural changes are going to occur. So therefore, the cure will definitely take place. There are no structural changes or even a tendency for structural changes are not there. And the cure will definitely take place. However, in acute diseases, it should be remembered that this type of aggravation occurs within the first few hours. So in an acute case, if you're treating an acute case, if you give the similimum, within the first few hours, you may get such an aggravation. Whereas in a chronic case or in a chronic disease, this type of aggravation occurs in the first few days. This is what Kent has to say. Now, let's come to the fourth one, that is no aggravation whatsoever. This means that there are no organic disease or no tendency for structural changes. So that means what? When you have administered the similimum, immediately there is direct amelioration. There is no aggravation. So what will that mean? That will mean that there are no tissue changes, no organic disease, or no tendency for structural changes. The chronic condition is not of a great depth, and it belongs to the functional level of the nerves rather than threatened changes in the tissue. So whatever chronic condition you are treating, it is not of a great depth. The pathology is not very deep enough, and it is only on the functional level of nerves rather than threatened changes in the tissues or rather than changes in the liver, spleen, brain, heart, etc. And the potency selected exactly fitted the case. And whatever potency you have selected, it exactly fitted the case. Okay, that means what? You have given just the right stimulus so that the artificial disease which was induced, it overtakes the natural disease and without any aggravation. That means what? Potency was absolutely perfect, which fitted the case very nicely. Okay, so I think so. The reference Dr. Hahnemann has given in organ text also saying that it is like putting two equilateral triangles, one on each other, so that no aggravation will take place. So if you have an equilateral triangle with all the angles are equal, both of them will superimpose upon each other and the cure will take place. So it indicates the remedy is curative and the symptoms should disappear and the patient should return to a healthy condition in an orderly way. So naturally, when such an observation, no aggravation whatsoever it occurs, that the remedy is curative, the pathology is not deep, it is only functional. Even if it is deep, it is a reversible pathology and the patient should return in health in an orderly way. It is the highest cure of affection in acute affection. So generally speaking, in acute affections, you will see this type of an reaction rather than in a chronic one. So I conclude this video by doing the 4 aggravations. In the next video, you will see the ameliorations and the remaining part in the 3rd video. So the remedy reaction or the prognosis will be done in 3 complete videos. So I hope you will like my video. If so, please do subscribe, share, comment, and forward this so that maximum people can be benefited. Thank you very much.